Not really having a lot. Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? It's your man J Kev here and Leif Taylor having our usual regular
What's up?
conversation.
What's up?
Our regular conversation about all things health, wealth, relationships, purpose, happiness, and everything in between. Pop culture, just about you name it, and we'll touch on it. If it's got anything to do with being a human being, but today we're just going to have a conversation around acceptance, Leif, around being able, cultivating the habit or cultivating the skill or cultivating the behavior of just being able to accept what's in front of you. And, Leif, and I guess I'll start with respect to relationships and people. And
Okay.
I was thinking about a situation, just talking to somebody, and they were expressing some concern and frustration about being in a relationship with a particular, with somebody,
Okay.
and it was revolving around the expectation of change according to what you want or you're expecting somebody to do or be versus just accepting the person that's in front of you and acting accordingly. And I was just thinking about,
Okay. I'll
that
follow you.
you follow. That
Yeah.
made me think about myself and in the past where um, I had to come to terms just with people in general with cultivating the habit of just dealing with the person in front of me as they present themselves
Yep.
versus dealing with somebody according to how I think they should be acting
Yep.
and they're placing my expectations and what I want that person to be. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So just over time, just learning how to accept somebody or accept people as they are versus how I think they should be. It really helps um, go a long way when it comes to frustration, when it comes to just having issues, and when it comes to just being able to keep your headaches to a minimum and not adding on to it because things aren't going the way or somebody isn't being or acting the way I think or perceive that they should be. So I was just thinking, like in today's world, how it is really. Um,
Yes. I'm sorry. No, go
who's
ahead.
that?
I'm sorry.
What's he say? What's he say?
No, she said she's the only one freezing. I'm like, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, how it really goes a long way when it comes to just maneuvering through today's world to just be able to um just accept the situation as it is, and that will go a long way with helping you get to where you want to get to.
So I got a question for you. I'm
Okay.
poking this. So so basically, are you saying get rid of expectations?
Mm, no, I mean you should have expectations, but you wanna hold softly to those expectations when it in terms or with respect to other people and how they have presented themselves to you in your life over a period of time. For
Explain a
example,
little further. Yeah, yeah.
for example, let's say you're expecting somebody to handle a situation with maturity. Maturity being that they don't throw a temper tantrum about something not going their way. And then it frustrates you that they're getting frustrated about it. It's like, why is this making you mad? I mean, grow up, be mature about this. But if you just let that person be and just be like, hey, this is just the way they are, and there's nothing I can really do about it. I can try to be a good influence or influence, that them in a certain way, but I'm not going to stress out about it.
Gotcha. So what are the benefits? Like, what is the benefit of
Of doing
accepting
that,
people
acceptance,
where
it
they
frees
are?
you up. It frees you up. You don't. You're not caught up in a lot of. I think I think you're not caught up in a lot of petty things that can really just distract you or get you down or weigh you down or have you worry, have you anxious, have you in a place of bitterness and experience a lot of negative emotions that you necessarily don't have to experience when it comes to somebody not being the way that you think they should be, and just taking them for who they are and acting accordingly.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, because when I think about this, I think about it in I guess a variety of ways.
Yeah.
On on the one hand, I look at it in terms because actually my wife and I we just had a discussion about this to an extent. But yeah, we always have these discussions. That Kevin makes it the topic, right? And so we were talking about an in a particular individual, and my thing was it's like when people show you who they are, believe it, right?
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, accept them for who they present themselves to be, and not what your expectations of them are. So in other words, if somebody has some underlying problems that you see, accept that. Like accept that as who they are or potentially could be, so that way you don't run into uh for lack of a better term, you won't get hustled later, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes, because I
It's
know
almost
you're
like
talking
you have rose-colored glasses on when
yeah,
you know.
because I know you're talking about it post relationship, like while you're in
Yes.
a relationship. I'm talking about pre relationship, and relationship meaning any interaction with a human being. Whether you just meet somebody, not necessarily romantically or
Right.
anything like that.
Right.
Talking about relationships in general. And so when people present themselves or they show certain traits or attributes, which could just be like an outlier sometimes, right?
That's
And you may read it wrong. However,
so the caveat
pay
is time.
yeah, exactly. The caveat is time, but definitely pay attention to that and don't expect somebody to be something other than what you've seen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. You're hitting on the same thing. Um, Not, I just mentioned rose-colored glasses, and this isn't necessarily talking about, like you said, uh, specifically romantic relationships, but it's just
Right.
in general any relationship, and having a certain perception or a certain expectation about a relationship, and like you said, just letting things fall as they are, and not just dismissing them or not rationalizing them and say, oh, that's not really what I seen, or that's not really what that means. Just letting things be. Um, that man, that can go a long way when you just let it be, and then just move and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and also like,
What made y'all have that conversation?
well, like I said, we were talking about an individual, and Sean was like, she was telling me like something didn't seem right
Yeah.
about this particular person and what they were trying to do. And I was like, yeah, just accept it for what it is. Even though your expectations for some people are higher than others,
Yeah.
uh, let them be who they are. For example, I'll give a real life example. So today I went to I virtually attended a conference on Black design, and I met a young lady who's in Switzerland. She's in school in Switzerland, and she's one of two Black people in the entire school.
Wow.
And so she was talking about like the different forms of aggression and all of that kind of stuff that she experiences there. And so we had a discussion. It was myself and a few other people, and we were talking about blatant racism versus subtle racism, right? And my thing in tying it back into the acceptance piece is, when we try to regulate people how they should act, then they can mask who they are, right? And I'm not saying that you don't treat people with respect and those kinds of things. However, for example, like pre George Floyd, a lot of these companies that you now see talking about equity and we care about black people and all of this, pre George Floyd, they didn't give a crap. Their numbers show it, their efforts show it, and the things that they do. So because it's politically correct now, they're quote unquote jumping on the bandwagon, but they're really not changing. And so instead of accepting those companies for who they are and quit patronizing them in terms of giving them your money and all of this kind of stuff, see who they are, see who they've been, and move on instead of trying to change that company, which to me makes zero sense because it's like, oh, you were racist yesterday, but since you said something nice today, I'm gonna still give you my money, right? And so that to me doesn't make any sense. And going back to the Switzerland conversation, we're talking about patterns of behavior and how some of the people are, and it's like, okay, do you get them to mask that behavior or do you point them out for who they are instead of expecting them to do something different? It's like, okay, I know that these people don't care about these certain things, so I'm not going to give them my attention or my patronage or anything else, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So what does she do?
I mean, she's there now. It's like, yeah,
So
she
how does she handle the situation? She just say, "Hey, this is how it is. Then I'm going to maneuver my life this way," or is
yeah,
it?
without talking about her specifically and what she's trying to
Yeah.
do, she has her own game plan and how to address certain things.
Okay. Okay.
And so like the acceptance piece, I look at like you said, the whole context is accepting people for who they are, and it's not to say that you can't hope for somebody to aspire to be better,
Right.
right? and
So
and
I would say that's having a positive, hopeful outlook.
yeah, like for example, your children, right? Children, we're both parents, we got young
Perfect.
kids
That's
same age.
perfect. That's a perfect
um
example.
yeah, and so your children, you accept them for who they are in terms of their personalities, in terms of their traits.
Like my
However,
dad did for me.
yeah, I'm gonna send this to him too. So and so and so
I
you
hope for the boy, but this is
yeah,
just who he is.
exactly. So you hope for the best. You hope that they'll, and of course it's your job to mold them and that kind of stuff. But again, you have to accept their certain types of personalities. Like even with twins, they still have their own personality sets, right?
So
They act their own way, and
that's
so you
perfect.
accept the nuances in their personality. Even though, like my wife, she homeschools, she approaches the teaching differently with the different daughter, right?
That
Because go
yeah.
ahead.
That's where I was really wanting to get at. Customizing your approach to the person that is in front of you versus trying to force the person to be who or what you think
Yeah,
they should be. They could be exhausting.
yeah. Because the thing about adults is adults are adults. You can't control another adult, without force, really.
Yeah.
And so you have to, like you said, it, it'll save you a lot of heartache and
You'll
headache
see the other person a lot of heartache too.
and a whole lot of things, right? And again, this is not to say that you just let people, like for example, if you think somebody has potential to be better, right? Everybody has potential to be better in some way or another. It's not to say that you don't point that out, that you don't address it or whatever, but it does say that I can't expect you to think like me. I can't expect you to do the things that I would have you to do. Uh, and, and again, there's depending on the type of relation, depending on the roles and all those things, that
Yes.
varies,
The
right?
dynamics. Yeah.
Because if you're a cop, I expect you to not be a violent offender. right? And
Yeah.
that's part of your requirement as your job. Well, it's at least it's in the manual, right? And so is those kinds of things. That's
So
not
this,
that's
so
what
this
we're talking.
goes back to, when you asked, should you have expectations? And I said, yes, you should have expectations, but yet hold them lightly.
Yeah, well, it's not even hold them lightly, really. It's like because again, I'm thinking about it on the flip side of like in terms of accepting people. If for example, I'll use the cop example again. If you like many of these cops that we see in the news or whatever, they'll have a history of offenses. It's not just the one. Like their histories usually before the shootings happen, right? And so accepting that that's who that person is, then you have to eliminate them from that role, right? And so when we're talking about acceptance, this is not necessarily giving somebody a pass in
Right, right,
terms
right.
of behavior. This is really like, okay, if I know that every time, if I know that you curse a lot, right? This I know like Kevin, he has the worst mouth ever. I don't expect to take you somewhere else and you not be who you are.
I mean, yeah, it's like taking me to church. You be like, bruh,
Yeah,
like, what do you
yeah.
mean?
So it's like I accept that this is the kind of person you are. So there's going to be certain limitations in terms of access,
You're
right?
going to manage our relationship
Yeah.
accordingly.
So I should be smart enough to understand that and not get upset with you for being the person that you've always been.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
That's the heart of what I'm getting at with this conversation is coming to that realization right
Yeah.
there, what you just said.
Yeah. Some again, just take people at face value and not even necessarily a prejudging. What I'm saying is like take people as being who they present themselves to be to you, right? And people can lie, people can be deceitful and that kind of stuff. You can't get
Yeah,
past that, right?
yeah.
However, it's like I can only base the way I interact with you based on the history that we start to develop. If I meet you and it's a bad interaction, chances are I'm going to accept that, okay, this might not work. It can get better down the road. There's plenty of people who I thought I would never be friends with that I'm friends with, but it's like just
Change is always not available.
yeah. And usually the expectations change as you get more comfortable with people, right?
Yeah.
My wife said definitely marriage definitely can teach you how to accept people for who they are. Yeah, because I ain't changing. Now just but yeah, but it's true because again, you can't control somebody's behavior, somebody's patterns. It might make you upset. But again, it's like okay, they're just not there. And you just have to again like you said either accept it or be at contention 24/7 because of it, right?
And the funny thing is when you do a lot in a lot of cases or in some cases when you do come to the realization of just accepting the situation, usually um, that's what opens up the door for influence
Yeah.
in a direction where that would make both parties uh, content or happy
Yep.
versus trying to force. It's almost as if if you come to me and you try to force me to do something, I'm like nah. But if you don't, if you just like leave the opportunity available or leave the door open, that I'm more likely to accept what you're asking of me.
Yeah, because in reality, like basically, this is just about truth. When you boil it all the way down to its bare components, right? It's like, okay, what is the truth? Who is this person? Who are you as a person? Even the way you think, right? Are you thinking truthfully, or are you thinking like like you said, rose-colored glasses and all of that kind of stuff? And that helps get rid of a lot of issues if you just deal with the truth, unless of course you don't like truth, right? And so that helps eliminate because like you said, I can't force you to do anything, but if you if I accept you for who you are, then the chances are you're likely to come to me to ask me for advice. and then I can openly and freely give you the truth.
When
And
when you try to force somebody, their fences go up, the shield goes up. But when you make room for, or grace, or you make space for somebody to be who they are, they're open and vulnerable. And along with that openness and that vulnerability comes influence and the ability to the availability to be influenced and moved.
yep, see, it is not even about them not being there, because sometimes we look at differences as being faults when they are not. This is true. And again, like one of the, like, I'll even say for me, uh, which I've known for quite some time, not everybody thinks like me. Matter of fact, a whole lot of people don't think like me. And so, and with that, you have to understand that people won't come to the same conclusions or even the same approach. And and also it's the same in reverse as well. We're talking about acceptance, and sometimes you have to accept who you are. And again, I'm talking about it from the standpoint of not looking at yourself in a light that you're truly not, like looking at yourself for the reality of who you are. And then
Now that's
that,
difficult.
no, it's very difficult, because
To
usually the
be,
rose
is this
colored
good?
glasses are put
Oh
on
yeah, looking at
yourself.
stuff. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm good. But
yeah, exactly.
so
And
that
so
takes a lot of introspection. That takes a lot of mindfulness. That takes a lot of quiet time. That
yep,
takes heavy conversations with uh, people who love you, but they will tell you the truth, and that
yeah.
takes a lot of yeah.
And so like, and for me, I'll just put it out there, I'm not the kind of person like everybody, like the big thing that's been going on for years, ever since I was in school, is like, learn to accept who you are. And but most of the time people want to stay that way, right? And
Right.
so, you know I'm talking about it from the standpoint of accepting who you are to become the person you need to be, right? Because to be the person you need to be is always a work in progress. Nobody just shows up there and they're that person. They're,
So as long as
where,
you're breathing, you're a
yeah,
work in progress.
yeah, because there's always room for improvement and room to be better. And I'm not even talking about in terms of social status or anything like that, but it's the way you treat other people, the way you think about other people, how you interact with people, those kinds of things. And that stuff only happens with time, because you don't meet everybody in until you spend time in dealing with different personalities and those kinds of things. And so when I'm talking about accepting who you are, it's accepting those quirks and those things that bug you, and those, so that you can root that stuff out, right? Because otherwise you'll just gloss over it, and you'll constantly be a jerk and not realize that you're the one that's the jerk. It's like the people that always have terrible relationships, like,
You're the common
it's like I'm
denominator.
always, it's like everybody I get in a relationship with, we fighting. It's like, I'm like, well, maybe it's you, right? And so it's stuff like that we have to think about. Is like, because like you said, it's the hardest thing to do, because you have self blindness. Being self aware is one of the most difficult things to do. For example, it's like my kids, right? They every now and then they be like, "Daddy, can you tell I've grown?" It's like, no, because I'm blind to the fact, because I'm constantly with you, right? I'm constantly around you, so I don't see the small
Slow. Yeah.
until it's like all of a sudden when they're like, "Oh, when did you get this tall?" Right? And you were there the entire time. And so it's like that with ourselves, is that you'd have to, and again, it takes a lot of introspection, and it takes other people pointing it out.
Take
You
some
know,
humility.
yeah, all of
Let
that.
the
It sucks.
ego, got the
Growth sucks,
ego.
man. It's painful. Yeah, it's just like my kids talk about growing pains. It's the same thing with changing yourself, becoming the person that you should be. It hurts, because you got to get rid of old habits, and habits are extremely hard to break because they're comfortable. That's why they're habits. You've grown accustomed to it, and it's like, oh, you got to stop that. That's not the habit you need to maintain.
And at the core of being the person that you need to be, you hit on it when you said it's not necessarily talking about uh, financially and career wise. We're talking about at the core becoming a more loving person.
Yeah, becoming a better human.
Yes.
Period.
I was thinking about that because we were slated to have a conversation on another podcast talking about principles, and that's just got and I've been thinking about that and thinking about at the core when it comes to principles, when it comes to first things first, when
Yeah.
it comes to those things that really matter most, that you are to orient everything else around the North Stars of your life. At the core of that, like you said, is becoming a better human being, grounded in love. Given
Yeah.
that, I was just thinking about, okay, if God is love, then we're supposed to be, we're images or imagers of God, but we're supposed to be displays of love in the world. So at the core of my principled behavior is supposed to be love, is what I was thinking about. And then how that love becomes displayed through, the different areas of our life is uh, is where you start your principles from. Does that make
Yep.
sense? Like,
No.
at the
I,
core of, being a human being, when it comes to connections, when it comes to contributing, when it comes to just living, um, at the core of all of that is supposed to be love. And then you look at the principles, the first things first that help orient your life so that you're always displaying love. And then,
yeah.
it's in a perfect world, but in the world that we live in, you have resistance, you have struggles, you have hurdles, you have troubles and tribulations. And these things come to be stumbling blocks, and they come to block you. So that's where the struggle
Yep.
of not letting the dark side take over comes in, and keeping the love on display and shining
Yeah.
like a light
Getting
on
rid of
the
that Sith energy. Yeah.
hill. Yeah,
It
exactly.
because yeah, when you think about it, typically most breakdown in society is that from a lack of love, in the standpoint of I'd rather see your detriment than your
Yes.
improvement, right? And so and that happens in different grades and shades, right? uh that's the root of conflict. And so, like you said, getting, like, even the scriptures talk about perfecting yourself in love, right? And that's what the perfection is. It's not, this capitalist standpoint of what perfection is. It's really, and what we're talking about specifically, Kevin and I. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about in your own home or whatever, but Kevin and
Yeah.
I are talking about in terms of biblical principles and things like that, in terms of how you interact with other human beings, how you interact with your neighbor, and your family. And so when I think about love, I think about it from the standpoint of how I what my vision of what my family should be in terms of my interactions, right? We talked about children, spouses,
Yeah.
but it's really just that, the expectations often in those kind of things, and this is where arguments can happen in a loving environment, is that you expect them to be this ideal person because you want so much for them to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And when they fall short of that, sometimes it causes conflict. and,
Yes.
and
So
so
that's where you were saying that it's not always a bad thing to
yeah,
have that.
not at all. Expectations are great, because if we don't expect to be better, then what's the point in change? Like, there is no change, right?
Right.
And so when I'm talking about accepting people, it's like, okay, if I want my, daughter A to be a certain way, then I need to approach her the way daughter A can accept it versus the way daughter B accepts it, right?
Right.
Because they're two different people. They have two different energies. So unless I accept who they are as individuals, I can't really address them the way they need to be addressed. And that's the kind of way I'm looking at it. Let's see, my wife says something. Shauna's my wife, if y'all don't know. So people talk about how well behaved our girls are. I always attribute that to them being well loved. Love truly completes in so many ways. Yeah, because we're by far not perfect parents, but one of the things that we consistently do is we show our kids love all the time. Even if I tell my daughter to do something that she didn't do, they're like they're agreeable in doing it, and I'll give them a hug and a kiss, like all right, get it done, you know, and even in harshness, you show kindness and that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of the way I've approached. And the more I spend time at home, the more I spend time interacting with people and thinking about my home. I I've personally started changing the way I talk with people, in terms of my expectations. And I try as much as, lieth within me to treat people as I would like to be treated. Seriously.
Right. Right.
And that's in all my dealings and that kind of stuff. I'm very blunt when with certain things. That's just
Right.
my personality.
Right.
But it's not out of maliciousness or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think in general, people can tell a difference about, as far as intentions behind what is said, on whether it is received as being harsh and not out of love, from a place of um, love, versus the other way around, versus a
Yep.
place of contentiousness and maliciousness. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, people could definitely feel that, regardless of what is said. I think early in the conversation, you alluded to your wife trying to have a gut feeling, and
Yeah.
that. I was going to point to that as one way of finding, one way of discovering truth, because you talked about truth, and how oftentimes we'll have a gut feeling when we come across, or we come in the face of truth, and oftentimes we don't pay attention to it. I know in today's world, we're really not taught to recognize that, and we're
Hmm.
not taught to kind of like really use that as a way when it comes to making decisions and trying to uncover what's truth and what's not, or
Yep.
what's helpful or real and what's not. I know I got an uncle who was very instrumental in uh, having me really pay attention to gut feelings when I was
Gotcha.
younger. So that he placed that in the forefront of my mind. Just to think the importance of feeling and just going with your gut.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Because sometimes, like even with kids, uh, like one of the rules that we have with our children, right, is if something about somebody that they didn't like, we didn't force them on them. Like if somebody wanted a hug, and our kids was
yeah,
like, it's not
yeah,
like go ahead and give them a hug. It's like okay, just that just today you ain't getting no hug, just that kind of thing, right?
yeah.
And of course, because I remember, it made me think about my grandfather because he had a booming voice when he talked. And so my one daughter, she would go, like they were little, she would run and hide under the cabinet sink and like get in the cabinet seat when he came around. But over time, she got accustomed to it, and so she was no longer scared of granddaddy, my grandfather. But we never forced her to go. It's like you be nice to everybody,
Right.
but terms of like because sometimes kids, if they don't feel comfortable, you shouldn't make them feel comfortable with being
Bring it home. Yeah.
around people that make them feel uncomfortable, right? So it's a difference with being comfortable with being uncomfortable in terms of bad situations and work and toil, but in terms of personalities and children, yeah, we don't mix that at all.
Okay.
So,
Trying
yeah.
to say, Love Taylor will tell you that I am very vocal about my gut feelings about people. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and it's in general, broad brush. Just talking about gender. Uh, Women are very much more in tune with their feelings, emotions, and their gut in general.
Yeah, they almost have to be in terms of a defense mechanism. Just from the physical stature, typically, and all of that kind of stuff. You just
In
have to be.
general.
Yeah, yeah, you just have to be. Is safety is part of that kind of stuff.
When you was talking, I was thinking about some of the recent headlines of transgender men or biological men now competing with females.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I'll say it. It's crazy. It makes zero sense, especially because
But we have
uh,
to accept it, or
no,
do
like
we?
again, like I'm gonna be blunt. Like I accept truth for what it is, right? And if you're a man competing in female sports, then it's unfair to women. It just is. And so because if you look at, because I know there was one like in terms of weightlifting, and it's really the physical
Yeah.
sports where it makes a difference, and they're setting records. They're
Yep.
like literally setting records, and it's like, how is this fair to these young ladies that have been training and practicing? It's just not. So
So do you think it would be more fair if there was a third rail or a third category for, transgender versus the mixing of all, the genders?
uh possibly, because honestly, in some sports, I think they just need to come up with different sports, like different rules for the sports, in terms of just to make it fit the biology of the contestants.
Yeah.
Uh, it like I'll use gymnastics for example, right? Gymnastics, women's gymnastics is by far more popular than men's gymnastics.
Yeah.
However, if you look at the way the rules are set up, women's gymnastics, they do different events than the men do. The only similarities are like the floor and vaulting, and I think that's it. Men don't do balance beam because men are typically top heavy in
Yeah.
terms of their mass is in their chest and their shoulders, whereas
Yep.
women have a lower center of gravity.
Yeah.
So men don't do the balance beam. Uh,
Right.
no, they don't. And so and in reverse, women don't do the rings because the rings are they don't do the rings or the pommel horse because those are all upper body strength movements. So they're designed specifically to fit men. Like even some of the floor routine part of the exercises, like when the men do have a different type of floor routine than the women do. Like they'll
Yeah.
do the flares and things like that because
Yeah.
those are upper body
Yeah.
strength movements that are requirements of men's gymnastics that are not the same requirement for females because it biologically doesn't make sense for it to be. So with things like that, I think it would improve sports for both for the genders if those things were happening, because that's just like to say you put LeBron James in the WNBA, it's a wrap. Nobody's gonna be able to stop him. It'll literally be unfair. Literally. I don't care what kind of arguments you make about it, it will be unfair. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about in terms of addressing things for what they are, and not no political hotspots, no
Just
even
throw all
emotion
the
and all of that kind of
politics,
stuff.
emotions, throw that out the door.
Yeah,
Just
but because a lot of
accept.
that stuff, yeah, because yeah, it gets convoluted in ideologies and things like that when that is not supposed to be part of what some of these things are about, right? And
Hmm.
so again, accepting things for what they are, men are by on average, not every
Yeah. Right.
scenario, but men
Right.
on average are physically stronger than women. Period. I remember years ago it was a tough man it was because my it made my cousin mad, my cousin James. Uh, it was a little skinny dude. He got in the ring. I don't know if it was like a tough woman. I don't know what the contest was. And he was like, "I'll whoop any woman in here." He didn't say men. He said woman. Little skinny dude. And he was just knocking the crap out of these ladies trying to get in and fight him
Oh man.
because it didn't make sense. Because again, he was physically stronger, even though he didn't look strong. He was physically stronger than a lot of those women, and it was unfair. And I'm like, because he was like, "You made me mad because he was a twerk." taking advantage of all of these ladies getting in the ring, thinking that they
Mhm.
can beat them because they
Unless
look
Lala,
bigger.
unless Layla Ali got in there, then we'd been a wrap.
Yeah, exactly. It's different then, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, man. That's so going back to what you were talking about in terms of like the sports, youth sports. When you start seeing records broken, you realize how unfair it is to the people that you want
Commit.
women's rights, but then you give the awards to men, regardless of politically how you feel about them. It
Hmm.
still is unfair to the females. Like for example, again, like I said, I'll say it because I don't care. But like the fact that Bruce Jenner won the Women's Sportsman of the Year, one wasn't even competing in sports, which is
What
terrible.
up? I didn't know he
Yeah,
won
at
those.
the ESPYs. Yeah, it's at the
No, I didn't
ESPYs.
know that.
Yeah, the Woman of the Year award
When was this?
went to
What
Caitlyn
is
Jenner
was
several
this
years
recent?
ago.
Oh,
No,
okay. Well,
it was
I
like
know
I
he
mean, because
won
they
like
haven't had the ESPYS recently. What do you say?
he won like Woman of the Year.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like then that's again it's like okay you talking about since post we talk post George Floyd, everybody's about they're on the equality train, right?
Okay.
However, this stuff is unfair to women. It's just unfair. How is a man gonna win a woman's award? It's unfair to all the women that did all the hard work to be the women that they are. And so again, because it became politicized. So you got to be careful. So again, when I talk about acceptance, and we're talking about acceptance, and talking about acceptance from the facing things from the way they are. It's not getting rid of expectations of people, not at all, because everybody should aspire to be better in some form of fashion. Nobody is perfect on this earth at this particular moment. They may have moments of perfection, but they're not perfect all the time, right? And so when we talk about these things, I hope that you can be better, but I'll accept you for what you are, who you are, when you are, and that way I can address. Then we can talk and discuss on how to become better.
So one of the things I wanted to hit on, when we got off on the gender topic, was that you mentioned one of the keys to when it comes to acceptance and just letting things be, and you talked about emotions and managing your emotions when it comes to just topics and just
Yeah,
letting things be the way they are, and also managing emotions and managing political views on things that can go a long way too when it comes to
yeah,
just trying
because
to.
again, the reason why managing emotions is very important, and even managing your logic, right? And I'll throw that in there as well, is
Yep.
because marketers attack it with a vengeance. They attack your emotions with the vengeance. They attack your intellect with the vengeance. And so you have to be very, very careful in terms of the bigger picture, because those things, they may seem arbitrary, they may seem like it doesn't matter, but it affects your interpersonal relationships with people that you see face to face.
Yeah.
So that's the real issue. It's not just about products, because now politicians are products, right?
Yeah.
And so when I talk about marketing, that's what I'm talking about, because they have other agendas that are hidden, that aren't made plain. And so they'll bring up topics to make you focus on one thing while manipulating your emotions to attack another, right? And so that's part of the issue. Hold on. Said
In
Caitlyn Jenner
general.
won Woman of the Year award for Glamour, SB Arthur
Yeah.
Ashe Award.
That's what I
Yeah,
was thinking of. Yeah,
crazy.
Glenn.
But anyway, so again, guarding your emotions is very difficult because we're so inundated with media nowadays.
Hmm.
Uh, because we carry our media with us everywhere we go. We're constantly on media of some degree. We're listening to some talking heads like us, right?
Hmm.
Somebody's always saying something. And when you spend your time absorbing all of this stuff, and if you don't start dissecting and thinking of the reasons why, it's like, okay, why does Kevin talk like that? Why does Leif talk like that? Why is this person telling me to do this? Why is this product supposed to be so much better than the other product? Why do I need this product? right? And when you start like literally just asking just the basic question of why, then it settles you in terms of seeking the truth,
Yep.
right? And that's the key instead of always fighting because one thing that's always funny to me because I'm an independent, been voting independent for years, so I hear people arguing, one party over another, and every time I listen to these conversations, it's never let me think of why my party is trying to get me to think this way. It's never that. It's always pointing the finger at somebody else and all of that kind of stuff. And instead of just taking a step back, getting rid of your emotions about it. Because if you don't get rid of the emotions, the high, it's okay to be passionate, but even sometimes your passion has to take a step aside. Because in order to get to the root of a problem, we have to discuss. We have to discuss in a fashion, catered toward love, right?
Yeah.
So if I love you, then even if I get heated about something, I'm not gonna lash out at you as an individual. I'm not going to lash out at you personally. And a
You're gonna
lot of
try to
times, in
understand
terms of
the situation.
arguments, in terms of disagreements, people will go personal very quickly. And as soon as that happens, the argument is done. The logic, there is no real hashing out of ideas at that point because now it's something personal, the way you feel about me versus the way you feel about the topic. And it's like, how are you ever going to come to a solution if anything that is being said is always an attack personally, right? And so you got to be very careful. And again, it goes back to accepting yourself and knowing what your hot buttons are, right? And
Yeah.
fixing that because that's a weakness in you. If I know that if somebody does something in particular and it's gonna send me over the edge, and I know they're gonna do it before I get there, and I still go and I let it send me over the edge, I've lost before I showed up. And so is that kind of stuff that again, what we're talking about in terms of accepting expectations, all of that kind of stuff is understand. Again, everything's introspection. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is introspection.
Yeah.
Everything is very much introspection, and then that way, if I introspect myself in terms of examining the way I think, examining the way I am, then it'll help me temper the way I treat you. It'll help me temper my expectations towards you. I remember my dude in college. He used to say it all the time. Like we get mad at him. He'd be like, "But how many times have you disappointed God?" And it would always be his comeback, right?
That's the
And
trump
so
card.
yeah, it was always his trump card. But it's true though because it's like okay, instead of me always pointing the finger at you, let me take a look at myself
Yeah.
because it's easy for me to sit with my eyes because my eyes are always pointed out, right? It's
Yeah.
easy for me to examine you and the things that you're doing, but then it's like, okay, like, oh, you man, Kevin, you ain't go to the gym yesterday, man. What's up with you? And I realize I ain't been in 3 weeks. But I'm ridiculing my expectations of you, and I haven't even lived up to my expectations for myself, right? And so again, just accepting those kinds of things in order to get better is really just looking at it from a truth lens, right? That's really what it boils down to. As long as we look at our lives, our efforts, everything through a truth lens, then we can get true perspective on where we are as individuals, as people, and all of that other kind of stuff instead of always casting instigations or whatever towards somebody else, which doesn't help anything.
Yeah, it doesn't really achieve anything. It keeps you in a state of just a state of agitation a lot of the
Yeah,
time. Which speaks to the importance of, one of the ways that you can get clarity and one of the ways that you can, become more accepting is finding that space. J. Kevin Johnson and Larry Taylor, what are some hard characteristics that people have had to accept about you? Huh. What are some hard things someone had to accept about me? Hmm. I don't know how to
we're
think
waiting,
about
Kevin. We're
it.
waiting.
I'm trying to think, man. I don't know. You have to ask. You have to ask those around me.
Man, I got a list. So you want me to get
Go
up
ahead.
my
Go ahead.
PDF, my PDF
Go.
file? let
He,
me get the
he,
scrolls.
he could be flaky.
She said not flaws either. So it's just characteristics about yourself that's not necessarily a flaw. It's just that people don't accept it about you. Yeah, I'll just put it up. You can't read it. Yeah, not flaws either.
Not flaws. Huh.
I know for me, sometimes I can respond without emotion.
Yeah.
And so
Black
he's
people,
like,
I've had somebody, yeah,
what he's
'cause
like,
I've had somebody say that. So
what
I go
about me or about you?
about me. The
Oh
same
yeah,
thing, not
yeah,
having an emotional thing.
yeah. So
And
that the I don't know. I guess, and again, it's not necessarily a flaw, but sometimes the fact that you respond emotionless, people don't know how to take it. So I think that's something that is probably a hard characteristic for people to accept sometimes. It's funny. I guess my look is one, like the way I look at people. I remember a guy, it could have been a racist thing too. As a guy, I remember he was at our door and my wife was talking to him. And then I walked to the door and I'm like, yeah, what you want? And he got scared. Like he's like, hey man, I
yeah, it's
didn't do
good
nothing.
too.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then like he just like literally just got scared. Like I'm like, I don't know why I'm not even big. Like I'm not
No
even
matter.
yeah.
Come
So
to
I
them
don't
like,
know.
what you want? I'm leaving, man. I'm like, man, I'm sorry.
David Weaver said, take the plank out of your own eye before telling others to remove the splinter out of theirs. Yeah. The mote and the beam. Yeah, for sure, man. It's the same thing. And again, just going back to the truth aspect of stuff, right? My wife said the Leif look is definitely a thing. Yeah, it's just the look. I remember in seventh grade, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just remove all the emotion out of my face.
Dang.
Literally. And actually the reason why I did it was because I remember I don't know if people even watch the news anymore, but I remember because I used to go to like in most of my classes from junior high through high school, I was the only black kid in my class, like for the vast majority of them. And I remember one time specifically, literally, this is what changed the way I looked at people. Actually, man, I can't say that because it was before that. Because my teacher used to be scared of me when I was a kid.
And now you wonder why that guy got scared.
Yeah, and so, but it's like I just remember I was like, you know what? I'm never gonna let people read my emotions, and that was just something I said I was gonna do. Uh, See, Kev, she said, "Come on, Jay Kevin, you gotta give us one." But he did say emotionless responses.
Yeah, emotionless.
He got like a
I,
half smile.
I could be emotionless. Yeah, with my face. Sometimes, I've been called stone face or stuff like that before.
Stop looking like you looking.
But
But
literally, I'm going blank right now.
so, but it's all good. But anyway, man,
I'm
just
sure if
just
you bring up some people in my life, they got, like you said, a PDF file of plenty of stuff.
yeah, it's like no, we hit up. No, you know what? We'll get your dad on the show. We'll put your dad on the show. Like, what's wrong with Kevin?
He gets to win. Oh, I've been waiting on this show.
Exactly. I've been telling him all my life. Because he would not hold back at all.
That boy, I don't know what's wrong with that boy, man.
but yeah. So anyway, we were talking about acceptance and basically accepting people
This goes
and
both ways.
yeah and catering your expectations uh, according to who the person is and their personalities, there's likes. Because one of the things that it did make me think about when you mentioned the topic earlier is train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they're old they shall not depart. And the key word is the way that that child should go, right? In terms of you, even like your teaching, all of that kind of stuff, we got to address individuals as individuals and not as a group, which is one of the things I think is a big flaw with school systems. Anytime you try to mass produce a system,
Yeah.
you run it, yeah, because they're like in any given class there are 20 to 30 variables that you have to deal with, and if you try to address everybody the same way, it just doesn't work. And so again, catering to the way the specific individual is, understanding, sometimes our expectations of others are unrealistic, and if it's something that they should be doing in terms of something that is agreed upon, then you're well within your rights to call them out on that, right? But that has to be agreed upon. It's not just a one way thing, and so we have to be very careful of that. I know I've been guilty of that before, and just catering, and curbing my own expectations of other people. I hope for the best, prepare for the worst kind of scenarios. Uh, but again, we have to examine us before we examine anybody else and make sure that the way we see them is fair. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. So is that it?
Wrap it up.
All right. Two-shot guys on the mic. Jay Cab, Leif Taylor here, just having a conversation about acceptance and how important it is in today's world for both sides, for you to be accepting, and for people to be give me room and give me grace and accepting of me too. So that's all we got for today. Appreciate you, love you. Hit like, share, leave a comment, let us know what you think. All
All
right,
right.
peace
Peace,
out.
everybody.